Please be seated if you are not. On behalf of the Graduate Theological Foundation's Board of Directors, faculty, and administration, and the students of the graduating class, we wish to extend this warm greeting and heartfelt welcome to all on this glorious day of celebration. Come into the circle of community. Come into the circle of love. Come into the circle of dreams. Come into the circle of hope for the future. I'm going to take a moment to introduce to you our honored guests and distinguished faculty members who are joining us on stage today. To my far left, Dr. Omar Shaheen, Director of Islamic Studies. He's also a Fellow of the Graduate Theological Foundation and the Ibn Taymiyyah Professor of Islamic Law. The Reverend Dr. C. Anthony Hunt. He is the E. Franklin Frazier Professor of African American Studies at the Graduate Theological Foundation, and he will be delivering the graduation address today. Dr. Gail Yee, the Nancy W. King Professor of Biblical Studies at the Episcopal Divinity School. Dr. Yee is also the 2015 Lord Robert Runcie Convocation Lecturer and the recipient of the 2015 Krister Stendahl Medal in Biblical Studies. The Reverend Dr. Francis Leong, Director of Southeast Asia Programs, Fellow of the Graduate Theological Foundation. Dr. Leong is the Bishop James Anthony Walsh Professor of Asian Christian Studies and Musicology. The Reverend Dr. Edward Mulvihill, Gratian Professor of Canon Law. The Reverend Dr. Henry Chan, Diplomate of the Viktor Frankl Institute of Logotherapy, and the President Jimmy Carter Professor of Mediation and Pastoral Care at the Graduate Theological Foundation. Bethany Morgan, who is the Registrar. Mrs. Luann Fulkowski, who is the Bursar, and Dr. Linda Morgan, Provost and the Katie Ferguson Professor of Religious Education.
May we be reminded here of our highest aspirations and inspired to bring our gifts of love and service to the altar of humanity. May we know again that we are not isolated beings, but connected in mystery and miracle to the universe, to this community, and to each other.
古生不死，是谓养兵，享兵之门，是谓田地根，绵绵若春，永则不尽。The Torah is the breath that never dies. It is the mother to all creation. It is the root and ground of every soul, the fountain of heaven and earth laid open. Endless souls, endless river. River of no shape, river of no water, drifting invisibly from place to place. It never ends, and it never fails.
We are the light of the world. A city set on a hill cannot be hidden. No one lights a lamp to put it under a basket, but on a lampstand, where it shines for everyone in the house. And thus our light is to shine on everyone, so they may see our good works and so give glory to our God in heaven.
No longer shall the sun be your light by day, nor the brightness of the moon your light at night. But the Lord will be your everlasting light, and your God will be your glory. Nevermore will your sun set nor your moon wane. For the Lord will be your everlasting light. Your days of mourning are at an end forever.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. الله نور السماوات والأرض، مثل نوره كمشكاة فيها مصباح، المصباح في زجاجة، الزجاجة كأنها كوكب دري يوقد من شجرة مباركة زيتونة لا شرقية ولا غربية، يكاد زيتها يضيء ولو لم تمسسه نار، نور على نور، يهدي الله لنوره من يشاء ويضرب الله الأمثال للناس والله بكل شيء عليم. These verses can be translated as, God is the light of the heavens and the earth. The likeness of his light is the niche in the wall where is placed a lamp, and the lamp enclosed in glass. The glass seems to be a shining star. The lamp is lighted with the oil from the blessed tree, an olive of neither the east nor the west, whose oil would glow forth of itself, though nor fire touch it, light upon light. God guides to this light whom God will, and God speaks to people through symbols, for God is the knower of all things.
Please rise and join me in the response to the community responsory. Wisdom has built herself a home. She has set up her 7 pillars. She has slaughtered her beasts, prepared her wine, set her plates and table. She has sent out her servants to proclaim from the highest places in the town. To the foolish, she says, leave your foolish ways and live and walk in the ways of insight. For gaining her is better than to profit from silver, better than that of gold. In her right hand is long life, and in her left riches and honor. Please join me. She is a tree of life to those who hold her fast. Those who cling to her are a
It is both a pleasure and an honor for me this morning to have the opportunity to introduce to you your graduation speaker, the Reverend Dr. C. Anthony Hunt. Reverend Hunt is a native of Washington, D.C. He's an ordained elder in the United Methodist Church, and since July 2011, he has served as senior pastor of Epworth Chapel United Methodist Church in Baltimore, Maryland. Dr. Hunt is also a professor of systematic, moral, and practical theology at the Ecumenical Institute of Theology, St. Mary's Seminary and University in Baltimore, where he is a permanent Dunning Distinguished Lecturer, a title awarded in recognition of ongoing excellence in teaching and scholarship. This is the highest distinction bestowed upon a faculty member by the Ecumenical Institute. Additionally, he is E. Franklin Frazier Professor of African American Studies at the Graduate Theological Foundation and teaches on the adjunct faculty at Wesley Theological Seminary in Washington, D.C. Dr. Hunt has preached and lectured internationally and is the author of 6 books. He's also published over 75 articles, essays, chapters, and sermons on issues related to the church and society. It is my distinct pleasure to introduce to you today the Reverend Dr. Anthony Hunt.
First, I'd like to take this opportunity to express my appreciation to Dr. Kendrick Clayton, the trustees of the Graduate Theological Foundation, the faculty, the students, administration, for your very kind invitation, this opportunity to share with you on this momentous occasion. It's quite an honor for me to return to this institution, and one that has been one of my intellectual homes, an institution where I, was a graduate student, and where I've had the privilege over a number of years to serve as a part of the faculty. And especially to you, the graduates, the 2015 class of the Graduate Theological Foundation. I offer words of congratulations, blessings to you, your families, the places where you serve. I'm reminded of a portion of a simple poem by the great American poet Langston Hughes, who encourages us, the last section of his great poem, to hold fast to dreams. For when dreams go, life is a barren field, filled with snow. It is my sense that one of the things that all people of faith and conscience wrestle with and seek to hold to in any variety of traditions, perspectives, persuasions, systems of belief, including those of the Abrahamic faith traditions, Judaism, Islam, and Christianity, is the matter of hope. The yearning to comprehend and appropriate hope is something that we all hold in common. These are days of tremendous change and challenge in our world. From the collapse of economies that affect all of us, to wars that are now being fought in various places across the globe, to natural catastrophe, to the proliferation of violence that affects many people and communities across America and the world. These are days of unprecedented change and hope. And I must leave the text for a moment to say parenthetically, yes, indeed, I serve in Baltimore, and much of what you hear and see is the truth, but it's not the whole truth. And so amidst this, there is this yearning, wherever we are, for hope among us. Hope is what the German theologian Jürgen Moltmann wrote about when he wrote in his book, A Theology of Hope, he wrote, "Hope alone is to be called realistic because it alone takes seriously the possibilities with which all reality is fraught. Hope does not take things as they happen to stand or to lie, but as progressing, moving things with possibilities of change." In one of his sermons, The Meaning of Hope, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. defined and characterized hope as a quality which is necessary for life. King asserted that hope was to be viewed as animated and undergirded by faith and love. In his mind, if you had hope, you had faith in something. Thus, for him, hope shares the belief that all reality hinges on moral foundations. Hope was for King the refusal to give up despite overwhelming and what might appear to be insurmountable odds. Indeed, hope is not easily attained to. In his book, Hope on a Tightrope, philosopher Cornel West cautions against the false sense of security in hope, yet unborn. West points out that real hope is grounded in a particularly messy struggle, and it can be betrayed by naive projections of a better future that ignore the necessity of doing real work for hope. For West, real hope is closely connected to attributes like courage, faith, freedom, wisdom, and yes, justice. It comes out of a context, the fiber of struggle, and it points to a future filled with possibilities if it is attained to, when it is attained to, of promise and progress. The hope that Moltmann, King, West, and many others have written of and wrote of is that which would beckon us to love everybody, both our enemies and our allies. This hope would help us to see that we can resist giving up on one another because our lives together are animated by the belief that we share in a common destiny. In his famous "I Have a Dream" speech, delivered in our nation's capital in the summer of 1963, Dr. King shared that a part of his dream was that we would be able to hew out of the mountain of despair a stone of hope. What real hope does is it moves us ever closer toward Dr. King's notion of beloved community. It is a hope that beckons us to dream of a better world. Hope for a better future is ultimately rooted, grounded in our shared sense that there is real potential for each of us, you and me, to change the world. Perhaps this is what Mohandas K. Gandhi meant when he encouraged those of his day to be the change that you want to see in the world. And my prayer I would share for each of you, the graduates of the foundation, was that you would go forth and somehow, some way, be the change that you want to see in the world, equipped and confident, assured that you can be the change that you want to see in the world. Every few years, I have the privilege of leading a group of scholars from Wesley Theological Seminary in a doctoral course that retraces many of the steps of the American Civil Rights Movement in Alabama. We journey to Alabama most times in the heat of August, and boy, is it hot in Alabama in August. We journey there, and I journey, though, with a group this past winter, and I will journey with another group this coming August. Boy, will it be hot. The group in January was typical of others with which I have worked over the years. We reflected much of the diversity of our society. We were Hispanic, Native American, Asian, white, black, female, male, from multiple faith traditions. And as we traveled, we prayed, we sang, and we shared our thoughts together. We cried on occasion, and we rejoiced together. As we traveled, my memory harkened back to one of our trips several years ago, where Dr. Eileen Gunther, professor at Wesley Seminary, who was part of one of our earlier trips, offered that it was a spiritual, an old Negro spiritual, sung by many choirs, titled, "I'm Gonna Sit Down at the Welcome Table," that played in her ear, in her head, throughout our experience. Dr. Gunther said that she thought about the variety of tables that we encountered as we traveled through Alabama that year. Lunch counters, restaurants, where all had not been welcome in the past. The dining room table of the parsonage of Dexter Avenue Baptist Church in Montgomery, where we were told that the Southern Christian Leadership Conference was formed. The kitchen table of the same parsonage, where Dr. King searched his soul and found God telling him to press on with his work. The tables at which the people of the 16th Street Baptist Church served us lunch, tables placed adjacent to the site of the tragic bombing on September 15th, 1963, that killed 4 little girls, tables around which members of our group gathered to share stories as victims of discrimination, of their courage and courageous work in the civil rights movement and other freedom and human rights movements, and our shared lament over a lack of awareness of what was going on in that time in our nation's history. At the conclusion of this trip in January, and at the conclusion of each of these doctoral immersions in Alabama, I am invariably struck by how far we as a society have come. Look around you for a moment. And I'm a Methodist, so I'm going to say this in a graduation commencement address, because I probably won't get this opportunity again. I'm used to people talking back to me. Amen. So look around you just for a moment at the diversity and the wonderful tapestry of humanity in this room. And let's applaud ourselves for how far we've come. Just applaud. This is a real sense. We are a real sense of hope. The presence of the divine. And yes, our small, diverse group here, as it is with the groups in Alabama, we are glimpses of beloved community, one with another. And we realize that we are tied together in a common destiny. We realize, as I travel through Alabama time after time, boy, is it hot, that those journeys would not have been possible 40 years ago, that we would travel safely through Alabama 40 years ago. And for me, these are real signs of the stones of hope hewn out of the mountains of despair that Dr. King spoke of 52 years ago. And so, wherever we find ourselves in the world, and however we seek to find hope in the living of our days, we are beckoned to heed again the poetic words of Langston Hughes. Hold fast to dreams, for when dreams die, life is a broken winged bird that cannot fly. Peace to you.
Thank you, Dr. Hunt. In recognition of the outstanding contribution to biblical studies made by Krister Stendahl, late Dean of Harvard Divinity School, and in appreciation for his early involvement and enthusiastic interest in the work and mission of this institution's commitment to religious pluralism, the Graduate Theological Foundation has established the Krister Stendahl Medal in Biblical Studies. Today, we are pleased to award the 2015 Krister Stendahl Medal in Biblical Studies to Dr. Gail A. Yee in recognition of her outstanding contribution to biblical scholarship through her prolific scholarly and popular writing and its practical application to the spirituality of daily life.
First of all, I want to thank the 2015 selection committee for this marvelous award. Dr. Krister Stendahl I'm a big fan of him, and he's been to my institution, Episcopal Divinity School, many times because, again, we're in Cambridge. I also want to thank members of my family who are here, the two who got stuck in traffic, my two sisters who got stuck in traffic and couldn't make it to the convocation address. I'd like to also thank my colleagues at Episcopal Divinity School who have been my very strong support in my biblical career. And lastly, to the Graduate Theological Foundation, just for its hospitality and its invitation to be part of this, part of your graduation ceremonies. Blessings to you all, and blessings to you graduates. Thank you.
The title of Fellow is the highest honor the Graduate Theological Foundation can bestow upon any member of our faculty. In recognition of his outstanding contribution in the field of systematic, moral, and practical theology, as well as in ecumenical studies, and in appreciation for his scholarly role as E. Franklin Frazier Professor of African American Studies, we are pleased to induct the Reverend Dr. C. Anthony Hunt as a Fellow of the Graduate Theological Foundation.
Thank you to the foundation again. I really appreciate this, this high honor and distinction. I really would be remiss, and I must take care of some business at this point. My wife is traveling with me. This is the first time that she's traveled with me to South Bend, and I want her to wave her hand. I thank her because she is beside all of this. Lisa Hunt, thank you. And thank you very much for this high honor.
In recognition of his years of service to the GTF as Distinguished Fellow and the Bishop James Anthony Walsh Professor of Asian Christian Studies and Musicology. And in honor of his lifelong commitment as a priest to the church and his ministry in the field of sacred music, the Graduate Theological Foundation is pleased to award the Reverend Dr. Francis Leong, M.M., the Doctor of Divinity honoris causa.
I'm deeply humbled, truly honored, and very grateful for this award from the Graduate Theological Foundation. I'm also very happy to have with me a graduate for the Master of Sacred Music, whose mother invited me to join in a daughter's celebration. And I'm also pleased to announce we have another priest from our neighbor, Kuching, the Chancellor, who has earned his Doctor of Divinity in Pastoral Studies. When I return, I hope to establish a center for sacred music, musical sacra, and work in conjunction with the priest and the archbishop, and then hope to recruit more to come to know more of the offerings at the Graduate Theological Foundation, not only in sacred music, but in the other fields, academic and professional. Thank you.
Fellowships constitute the highest academic recognition offered by the Graduate Theological Foundation to a doctoral graduate. The John Macquarie Fellowship in Philosophical Theology is the highest recognition the faculty of the foundation can give to a graduating student in a doctoral program. This fellowship is named for the late Professor John Macquarie, Lady Margaret Professor of Divinity Emeritus, who served as the Martin Heidegger Professor of Philosophical Theology at the Foundation until his death in 2007. The 2015 John Macquarie Fellowship is awarded to Michael David Colvard for his thesis titled Toward a Soporific Ethnomedicine Ministry of the Order of St. John of Jerusalem, Fraternitas Hospitalitaria. Please help me in congratulating Dr. Michael Colvard. Named prizes are awarded at the time of graduation to students who have distinguished themselves in their field of study. The prize is a partial tuition voucher for an advanced degree at the Graduate Theological Foundation. The Mary McLeod Bethune Prize in Education honors her innovations in higher education for African American women and is awarded this day to Seema Imam for her doctoral project titled Enhancing Islamic Schools. Please help us work. The Viktor Frankl Prize in Pastoral Logotherapy honors Frankl's contribution made in the field of pastoral care and counseling and is awarded this day in absentia to Kenneth Katan Ayubi for his doctoral project titled Islam and Logotherapy, a conceptual and practical study examining the potential of synthesis in Islamic contexts. The Charles Wesley Prize in Sacred Music and Liturgy honors his contribution to hymnody and piety in the Christian Church and is awarded this day to Alan Mark Wellman for his doctoral project titled Crowning Jewels, a conductor's guide to selected repertoire of the English choral revival. The Mother Teresa Prize in Spirituality and Community Service honors her deep commitment of service to the poor and is awarded this day to Karen Lee Ehrlichman for her doctoral project titled Tending the Divine Spark, a Contemporary Model of Spiritual Direction Supervision.
Dr. Clayton, in accordance with the laws of the state of Indiana and pursuant to the provisions of the corporate charter of the Graduate Theological Foundation as granted by the state, I have the privilege and pleasure to present to you, as president, the members of the graduating class of 2015 for the conferral of the degrees earned in course of study to be attested by the giving of the diploma. Bachelor of Theology, Imam Abdelhadi El-Mutawakkil. Imam Fatin Saifullah. Dr. Joyce Tang Juin. Mr. Abdel Hamid Shehada A. Al-Ghizawi. Deacon Daniel Lawson Piles, Jr. Doctor of Ministry, the Reverend Allison Brody Alpert. Mr. Ansel Joseph Augustine. Chaplain Beatrice H. Broder Oldak. Ms. Karen Lee Ehrlichman. The Reverend Canon Jeffrey Douglas Gibson. The Reverend Thomas Charles Houston. The Reverend Michael J. Caron. The Reverend Philip Glenn Kinkin III. Sister Hilda Kleiman, OSB. Mr. Nicholas Joseph Liebisch. The Reverend Simon Peter Po Hoon Sang. The Reverend Donald B. Stouter. The Reverend Horace Wellington Duke Walker. Mr. Jeffrey Roy Neufeld. Mr. Noe Sanchez. Mr. Alan Mark Wellman. Mr. Michael John Siracusa, Jr. Dr. Seema A. Imam. Mr. Tanwir Javed. The Reverend Sandra K. Jones. Doctor of Psychology, the Reverend Joan R. Alevras. Reverend Father Simanshia Boateng Menza. Ms. Linda M. Monternock. Dr. Timothy S. St. Ange. Ms. Diana Sue Stern. Ms. Emma B. Wallace. Imam Ahmed Moalim Abdul Kadir. The Reverend Peter Akin Otiko. Mr. Saeed Atif. Dr. Imad Bayoun. Dr. Matthew E. Bunsen. Ms. Janice Smith Burrows. Dr. Michael David Colvard. Dr. Nancy L. Graham. Imam Mohammed A. Hassan. Imam Kadar Omar Jama. Mr. Mustafa Soliman Mohammed Kamel. Pastor Deborah Ann May Hoyles. Mr. Mohammad Shibli Siddiqui. The Reverend Charles Nameka Ugwu. Please join us in congratulating the graduating class of 2015.
Please remain standing for the closing. This is the mission of our faith, to teach the fragile art of hospitality, to revere both the critical mind and the generous heart, to prove that diversity need not mean divisiveness, and to witness to all that we must hold the whole world in our hands.